Hey, Howard.
In case you need a lawyer, here's my business card. I'm attorney Howard Ankin.
Oh, hey, Howard.
If you or someone you know has been hurt at work, Ankin Law can get the medical bills paid, the lost wages reimbursed,
Oh, hey, Howard.
and the compensation you deserve.
Hey, Howard.
We're one of the largest filers throughout the state of Illinois of workers' compensation claims. We're here to help. Call 312-6-million. Injury law made personal, that's Ankin Law.
From your favorite source for Chicago White Sox talk, delivering news, interviews, analysis, and more. This is the Sox Machine Podcast with your hosts, Jim Margulis, James Fegan, and Josh Nelson.
Thanks, Rob, and welcome to a new episode of the Sox Machine Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Nelson, and it's Sunday night, April 19th, 2026, as we record this new show. Maybe the Chicago White Sox should move to Sacramento. I jest, but what a great weekend offensively for the White Sox as they hit 8 home runs. They scored 22 runs as they win 2 out of 3 against the Athletics. We'll recap the big offensive production, especially for Munetaka Murakami, who has hit a home run now in 3 straight games. With the series win, the White Sox are 8-14, but they are not in last place. They are 1 game ahead of the Kansas City Royals, who are in the midst of a 7-game losing streak. So progress. We'll also talk about Noah Schultz's second career start as he looked much better on Sunday. Davis Martin, all-star? It's just 4 starts, but the dart has looked very sharp to start the season. At the end, we'll take a look around Major League Baseball as the grass hasn't been greener for Luis Robert Jr. in Queens, and Mason Miller is on some type of a heater. Joining me to recap the White Sox series win in Sacramento is Sox Machine's beat reporter, it's James Fegan. And James, hello. The White Sox, I think in a way we can say they should have swept the Athletics. The offense looked good, even though there was definitely some missed opportunities in that second game, losing in extras in the 11th inning when they had the bases loaded with nobody out. But as you wrote in the recap on SoxMachine.com after the White Sox 7-4 win on Sunday, 8 home runs this weekend from White Sox hitters, and 3 of them came from Munetaka Murakami, and they were not cheapies. Big home runs from Murakami this weekend. And he's, to me, looked more comfortable in this series for the second time this season. It's now 3 straight games with a home run. Is this just the type of hitter White Sox fans have to accept that he's going to be boom or bust, at least early to start his major league career?
I'll go ahead and say, yes, this is the type of hitter he is. He is kind of maxed out the sliders for impact when he does make contact with the ball, rather than, I know they talked about adding hitability to them, but I think they were referring in terms of making enough contact that he doesn't bust, not like he's going to hit bat 270 or anything like that. If you look at a breakdown of even his balls in play, the zone where he's swinging at, it's very narrow. It's it's very fitting his 3 true outcomes right now. His approach is to wait till he gets something in his zone and then try to kill it and put it into orbit. I think it's working right now. I of all the things to kind of gripe about, his batting average being aesthetically displeasing while giving you probably more than especially after a monster series, he's in the 900 OPS. I think it's great. It's going awesome. He hit some home runs off breaking balls and just more hits off breaking balls the last couple of days. Not the greatest starters in the world, but him staying on an Aaron Savali curveball and lining it for a single, that's a good sign. Right as we were heading out, or the end of the Tampa series, I'd kind of been noticing his leg kick looked like it was kind of swinging, he was holding it. I'm just trying to watch a video of it that's straight on from center field right now, and it doesn't look hugely different. It's more or something I noticed because the White Sox press box is on a side angle, so you can kind of see him swinging it out an hail, it kind of swings out like a screen door a little bit as it feels, and it just seems like he's hanging out for longer. And so I was brought that up to Ryan Fuller when he was doing his scrum at the end, And he's like, yeah, we wanted to give him something that kind of matches how big his hand load is, because he's like Shohei Ohtani and Seiya Suzuki, these like Japanese sluggers who have their hands like way out and have a really long hand path, and it obviously creates a lot of leverage that they get the power from it. But they were trying to sync up his lower half and upper half a bit more. Like previously, we thought like he'd get shorter up there for contact, and now it's more like we just want to sync him up, make sure it's just as big below the waist as it is above the waist. And so the idea with that is giving him like more timing and more space to adjust to breaking balls, and to see him kind of like cartoonishly like hold up on that 73-mile-an-hour one on Saturday, where it's almost like he's barely able to hold himself and then flicks it, and then obviously have a far more convicted swing on the slider on Sunday, which it was a hanger is dead in the middle, but that's his job. That's his entire approach, is to absolutely obliterate it and make it a game-changing impact if you put something in the middle of the zone. And he's doing that right now. He's also whiffing if it's well located, and that's going to happen. But I think he's executing his approach, and it even seems like he's maybe doing it a bit better, or handling at least mistake secondaries better than he was doing a week ago, when it was still kind of like everything was so geared up for velocity that you weren't seeing him able to make that adjustment that well. So I think it's the limitations are there. He's I don't know if he'll ever bat 250 in the majors the way he's looking. Maybe he'll get a lot better. But I think this version of it is definitely what you wanted when you envisioned them signing Murakami, like 220 with like a 20% walk rate and lots of bombs. They wouldn't have got him for 234 if everyone knew he could do that.
Well, I mean, that's a good point. And I want to give a cap tip to Chuck Garfien, because on social media, on Twitter, Chuck made this comparison, and maybe it's a bit early for this comp, but I understand where Chuck is coming from. This profile sounds a lot like Kyle Schwarber. And the White Sox, especially like we talked about on this podcast, White Sox fans have been clamoring for it. This lineup, this team could really use Kyle Schwarber, where it's 40, 50 home runs, just having a parade of home runs during the summer on the south side of Chicago. Is that the kind of hitter that Murakami could blossom to if this technique holds?
I mean, hopefully Kyle Schwarber is kind of in this like later portion of his career when it's more extreme oriented in this way. I mean, he's never batted for high average, but he's had seasons where he's maybe not like this distinctly power over hit. I think Chuck's point is like, this is the shape of what like an elite power hitter can look like. And it's like, you may look at the batting average, but this is actually like, there's a clear comp for this, of this approach working. As you put it, what people are going to react with is like, Murakami's essentially done this for like 3 weeks and it looks promising. Right. But the whole thing about Kyle Schwarber is that he's got 350 career home runs at this point. We've seen it for a decade, and we're in the process of trying to place him in the where does he fit among like a great major league power hitters in history. And so thus bringing someone up in terms of Schwarber in terms of consistency, when this is like such kind of an unfinished analysis, I guess, of what he can be and whether this will hold up. I think that's what people will react to, while like just saying like, hey, the shape of this production is very similar. I think that's a very valid point.
It'd be great if Murakami does become Kyle Schwarber. It'd be great if the White Sox can find ways to get on base so they could really cash in when Murakami launches one. 8 home runs on the season so far for Munetaka Murakami. I was hoping that he hit 10 in his first month, much like Jose Abreu did in his rookie year with the White Sox. Murakami's got a chance to have 10 or more on May 1st. So he's definitely been the much needed home run hitter this White Sox lineup needs. Over on the right-hand side, we talked about this in our previous episode, podcast listeners, in case you didn't check that out. James and I were wondering aloud, where are the right-handed hitters for this White Sox team, which is a very odd thing to talk about after decades of this lineup just being dominated by right-handed power hitters. Yes, the sun did play a factor, but I like what I'm seeing from Everson Pereira, James, and with his swing, and he swings with intention. Like, he is not cheating himself with his A swing. He went 4 for 14 this series against the Athletics. He had 3 doubles. It's just 37 at bats, listeners. I understand small sample size alert. But Pereira's batting .297 with a .366 on base percentage, and he's slugging .649. I'm not saying these numbers are sustainable, James Fegan, but can Pereira be that much needed power bat the White Sox need from the right side?
He's certainly the best candidate. He's certainly the guy like of that crop that I'm most excited to see go up there and what he can do. Like he has real bat speed. He has real raw power. He's hit over 20 home runs in a season in the minors. He's got, his O swing right now is like insane because both the start of the season, that first game of Milwaukee, and when he first came off the rehab assignment, he was just like absolute swing mode in a way where like part of the thing with Pereira is almost everything is in place for him to be a good player, except like in zone contact. He just whiffs at so many fastballs. Like his swing is fast, but not necessarily the most like aesthetically pleasing thing or super like doesn't look super fluid and accurate. He misses on riding four seamers a lot. So for me, oh my God, if he could sustain that small sample size number is a 83% zone contact rate, which is 12 percentage points higher than anything he's ever done in the majors over any stretch of time. Like his chase numbers also look crazy, and you kind of have to trust that they're going to come down. But if that's what moving his hands down or just the kind of other things they've done to smooth him out is going to result in, like every team would be pretty interested in Everson Pereira, and certainly among like the group of a lot of glove first dudes on this roster right now, especially on the right-handed crop. Yeah, I give that guy 500 plate appearances. Let's see what happens at this rate. With the level he's chasing, have we not seen him like tested in the zone with like top rail heaters maybe as much as he would otherwise? Or just like, are we going to see some other adjustment from him coming out hot because it's April 19th and he's played half the games and we just don't know yet? I don't know. But in terms of like, yeah, that guy's tooled up if he's making contact at all to keep himself competitive, especially on this group. As far as like the outfielders, like he's the most interesting power bat, I think, of that entire crop. And you could probably throw Benintendi and Antonacci in there as well if you're making a broader point about the outfield.
Yeah, with Pereira, there's just one misplay that he had against the Athletics that resulted in a triple for Max Muncy. I think he just timed his jump wrong at the wall, but he also made a fantastic relay as well on a Lawrence Butler double that Butler was trying to extend into a triple, and Pereira showing off the arm strength, getting into Maidroth, and Maidroth getting to Vargas in time. That was a huge out for the White Sox, even though they lost the game on Saturday. That was a big defensive play by Everson Pereira. I'm starting to buy in on Everson Pereira. The White Sox need somebody to lock down one of these three outfield spots. If Pereira can hold this up, and maybe all these numbers across the board are going to come down. But man, if he can be an 800 OPS hitter and play solid right field, that'd be a godsend for the Chicago White Sox.
I mean, what I am all in on is like the project of Everson Pereira. Like this is a worthwhile pursuit for rebuilding team, especially when you pair it against other guys who are like, all right, what's the best vision of this? Is this like a glove first, fourth outfield? Like, what are we getting out of giving this guy like regular plate appearances? Like, what's the ceiling we're chasing? I think Everson's like, when he's working, like, yeah, that looks like a guy who starts on a good team someday down the road. Like the tools are there to pursue it. And so like, as far as like the projects that we're sitting through and hoping pan out, that looks like a good one.
Now you wrote about Brady Montgomery as well this weekend on Sox Machine. And I can already hear listeners say, what does this mean for Brady Montgomery if Pereira could stick at right field? I think as a project, I mean, we're not expecting this White Sox team to contend for the postseason this year. Do you see if Montgomery can play center field in the majors? Would that be the idea?
I think they want, like, it'd be similar to Pereira where you'd have defensive linemen where you're cool with him being out there. I don't think that's like, for either one, you're hoping they mature into a 120 starts in center field type of thing. It'd be great if he did. They're giving him some opportunities to play out there, Braden, that is. But I don't think that's really like the vision or expectation. Having one of them figure out who's left field, right field, certainly with Brady Montgomery's massive throwing arm, you'd assume it's Pereira long term, but it's not a bad problem to have necessarily. I certainly don't think. I mean, Benintendi's contractually here, but and Antonacci's there right now. But I don't think either one's just like, well, left field's called for the next 5 years, so we need to figure out which one of these guys is in the pecking order. I think the White Sox are in a position of any and all outfielders to look worthy of taking some time on is an exciting prospect, and we're far off from worrying about some sort of crunch.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably more of a second half, and let's see where Everson Pereira is with his second half numbers this year in the major leagues. But great sign so far. I've been impressed, and I'm starting to buy in a little bit more in Everson Pereira. Hopefully this hot streak continues. Let's play a game called Weird Metrics. And the contestant here is Colson Montgomery. Now, Montgomery had a good weekend against the Athletics. He's back to the Mendoza line, batting average-wise. He went 4 for 11 over the weekend with 2 homers and 4 RBIs. But with the weird metrics, Colson Montgomery's got very weird splits to start the season. He is hitting much better on the road than at home. This year, Montgomery's OPS on the road is 886. At home, just 580. I'm going to chalk that up to being fluky. Maybe the cold weather in Chicago has played a factor. But this is where I want to ask you, James, because I know we've had this conversation, Jim and I, over the years on this podcast, and I just, there's nothing concrete, and maybe there's no evidence to suggest that a hitter can just see the baseball better at day than at night. But in day games so far, Montgomery has an OPS over 1,000. Playing at night, 400. Is there a thing? I mean, have you ever heard from a hitting coach or even like Ryan Fuller or a player that ever admitted, yeah, I feel a lot more comfortable hitting in the daytime than at night?
Wasn't there like some sort of eye thing with like Josh Hamilton about this a couple of years back? You certainly don't hear about it a lot, and you hear like talking to Braden like last week. He clearly, he wasn't talking about it in terms of results or like I can't get hits in the day. He just clearly likes night games because he gets to practice more. His day is more structure. I wouldn't even like know if his results actually reflect that in any way. So I think certain guys like might feel better during certain times of day, but I'd be surprised if there was like some physical thing that he was working through. And at this point, obviously the sample size is so small. My inclination is to be like, yeah, even if like, man, that's weird. I'm staring at this number and I'm trying to see if it makes sense. It's kind of like, well, it bears watching, but we need to like see something a lot more and start seeing like what is he struggling at? Is he not picking up? Is he late on fastballs during this time? Is he not picking up spin? Like what do we think is going on before we really like say like this is a thing or you know this is even not even something he can recover from. I've been rambling just to stall to see what it was for him last year so that I can be like it was reversed last year, so why was it an issue now? But I can't find it. I've just been scrolling aimlessly this whole time.
Is this a thing, the biomechanics team for the White Sox? Like, do they ever address like eyesight? I mean, we talk about like how where your hands are positioned.
You would think it's part of the physical. He was better at night than day last season. He was 852 night, 815 day. So I'd be surprised. Really struggled with retractable roofs while I'm looking at the game condition splits on Baseball Reference. So sorry, Justin Ishbia. take that in mind. You'll kill the golden goose with the retractable roof based on these 13 plate appearances.
It just has me wondering, just from like an overall baseball sense, if players are still having that difficulty, or if they do have a preference that they just admit, I hit a lot better at day than at night. I don't think it would be a thing in this day and age with so many of these players when they're going up as far as travel ball, high school, some of them college, they've gotten used to playing at night, but maybe it's no longer a thing, or maybe it is a thing for Montgomery.
But to your point, they play so much of their early career at day.
Well, it's the minor leaguers. They have school days, right? They play at like 11 a.m.
Yeah, but even if you're just playing like travel ball or showcase, you're like playing so much during the daytime in these like afternoon long tournaments that I feel like day baseball would be like your main thing that you get trained on as a kid. And then night games, like, kind of come in more as you start playing at, real parks that have lights more and more. It doesn't necessarily happen until, you sign a pro contract or you're out of the small college you went to, or like, I don't know how many like huge stadiums full of lights did like Sam Antonacci play in before he got to Coastal Carolina. Probably not a ton. So
probably none. Yeah. Probably not many. Not many. But there you go, podcast listeners. Weird metrics. Colson Montgomery has a few, but it's good to see that he had a good weekend as well. Makes it really exciting when both Murakami and Montgomery are hitting home runs in the same series, as the White Sox definitely flex some power this weekend against the Athletics. Others that join the home run party people, part of the home run party people for the White Sox this weekend. Derek Hill hit a home run. That surprised me, but he's on the board. Andrew Benintendi's on the board, and so is Miguel Vargas. So those are the guys who hit home runs for the White Sox this weekend against the Athletics.
Benintendi made a point was in Kansas City. He's like, when he's making contact, it's pretty hard. He's just not making enough contact.
No.
He doesn't think that'll continue, but that was an observation he had. I was like, oh, yeah, good point.
On the pitching side, while the offense gets the highlights for the amount of runs they scored against the Athletics this weekend, Noah Schultz on Sunday in his second start, much better. Only allowed one hit, just one run over 5 innings, looked in control, looked in rhythm. James, what worked better for Noah Schultz the second time out?
I mean, he obviously had better command. It wasn't like surgical or even quite like what I think we've seen from him in the minors, but he remitted to having nerves and, clearly walked a lot of guys in his debut, and that was less of an issue. But I think a big thrust from Jim's piece, I don't know if Jim's given name is James, is that he didn't get to any of his secondaries in his debut. And part of that was command and how far behind he was in the count and just not being set up to like use his changeup as much. But you could see him like right out of the gate against like in the first inning, like throwing more sweepers. And even though like his command wasn't good with his sweeper, I don't think it like was super effective overall. He was just kind of showing his full arsenal right away in a way that I thought, well, I mean, I'm going off results a little bit and, self-justifying my own theory, but it seemed like he's using his secondaries and then you're seeing his heater beat barrels to the spot and get weak contact or get pop-ups or flyouts throughout the game. It seems like, well, obviously no one's sitting on your velocity, maybe the way they were able to in portions of, his debut. The way like Caro talked about the cutter, and definitely because Caro was catching him again today or Sunday, he talked about something that he could get back into the counts with. So it almost seemed like he had a strikeout on it, but it seemed like almost a measure of health, not like health in terms of like how well he was operating, not physical health, that like it was one of his like least used pitches. Like he didn't need it that often because he was able to dot some corners with fastballs, and he was mixing like at least his changeup, like he dirted a lot of them, but when it was in the area, it was pretty effective as well. And that was something he didn't use as all in his first start. So it just seems like a little bit more of a big picture of, the full Noah Schultz. And like, it wasn't like he was dominant. Like it wasn't like they had no chance up there, but in the end, I think for him to not still really look like he's in working order and have a lineup kind of looking at least overwhelmed. They're certainly not able to really do a lot of aggressive swings on it. And like the home run off him wasn't necessarily fluky per se, but it was sub 100 exit velocity, and more like it was a slider that kind of got away entirely, where it stayed letter high and was on the inner corner. It's not a pitch you'd call up on like the strike zone plot and be like, well, good location there. Like obviously if you elevate a breaking ball, there's a chance it gets hit out. But it wasn't like a crazy like middle miss in some insane way. So that's the only hit he allowed in 5 innings. I think like, even if it's weird, even if it's like, it didn't feel like he was that surgical to only walk one, the starting line generally just tells you like, I think it's an accurate portrayal of like the quality of his outing. Like he was really good. It wasn't like perfect or like, man, this is like a different animal and none of us can compete with it, but he was, better than the hitter he's facing. And then the fact that like bullpen kind of struggled for the 4 innings kind of showed to the degree to which he was holding that group down. So very encouraging, and still doesn't seem like his best. So that's even more of a positive view to take on it.
Noah Schultz's next start is going to be at home on Saturday against the Washington Nationals. The first pitch of that game is going to be at 3:10 p.m. Central Time. So if you didn't get a chance to watch Noah Schultz in his home debut last week on Tuesday, you'll get a chance to see Noah Schultz make his third start in the majors on Saturday afternoon against the Nationals. So Schultz pitched well, but I also want to talk to you about Davis Martin, the all-star. Okay, maybe that's putting the cart before the horse a little bit because it's only 4 starts. But Davis Martin's looking good, James. And if he keeps this up, I mean, his 3 starts in the month of April, 20 innings, only allowing 3 earned runs. It's 6 scoreless. It's 7 innings, only allowed 2 runs against the Royals. And then on Friday night against the Athletics, it's 7 innings, just 3 hits allowed, 1 earned run. Yeah, the strikeouts are not there, but he's providing the White Sox with innings. He's limiting the damage from the opposing team. If he keeps this up, I mean, in a couple months, are we going to be talking about Davis Martin, the White Sox all-star rep?
Possibly. I mean, like, based on results, like, if the all-star game had to be picked today, yeah, I think Murakami would be picked. To be realistic, like, the White Sox won't be struggling necessarily to, like, we got to pick somebody. So yeah, because he's there and he's currently working out, and if we if they had to pick a rep today, I think they pick Murakami and call it a day. Because one, Martin isn't overwhelming hitters or missing bats in a huge way, and because he's not already established as one of these premier starters in the league, I don't think necessarily having good results makes him a shoe-in. Certainly if the Sox didn't have somebody with a 900 OPS, he would seem this is a good middle rotation guy who's having a good year. You don't hate having those guys put in the All-Star game. It's basically what Shane Smith got in on last year. That's your Michael Lorenzen type of All-Star appearances of good innings eater guy, had a good first half. It's not and I mean this both complimentary and also to give analysis. He's having good Davis Martin starts. It's not like he started throwing 3 miles an hour harder, or is his strikeout rate just exploded, or you're not seeing any hard contact at all, or he's his slider got took some level up, or the kick change is killing everybody. It looks like he's just executing his plan very well, and that's great. And he's eating a lot of innings, and he's showing why he's was a valuable, no question, he's in the rotation from the day one of spring training guy that he was, when I think some of our readers were if there's an open competition, this dude doesn't have amazing peripherals, shouldn't his spot be up as well? I think this is kind of answering that a little bit. I wouldn't necessarily see this and be he's obviously on track to have a good year, but be all the ingredients are here to be sub-3 ERA all season. We'll see. He attacks people, he challenges, he gets early contact, and that's the way he operates. And some nights he'll get hit a bit harder, or that he can't manage it as well as he's done it so far. But he's a quality pitcher, and he's showing it. I think is the main measured assessment I would have of it.
I wonder if moving forward with his starts, especially if he continues to eat up 6-7 innings, if we see some type of piggyback with Davis Martin, Sean Newcomb, because in 4 starts, small sample size again, but right-handed batters only have a 500 OPS against Davis Martin. And for the most part, he's keeping it simple against the right-handed hitters. 34% of the pitches that Davis is throwing are sliders. Opposing hitters are hitting just 100 against that slider. They're whiffing on that pitch 60% of the time against Davis Martin. And then when he's not throwing the slider, he's throwing his 2-seamer 26% of the time. Again, opposing hitters are hitting just 100 off that pitch, but they're whiffing at a much lower rate, 11%. And then if it's not the 2-seamer, he'll pump in the 4-seamer at 18% of the time. And that's where right-handed hitters are having more success against Davis Martin, hitting 375, but a whiff rate of 41%. So slider, 2-seamer, 4-seamer against righties. Left-handed hitters are having a decent OPS against Davis Martin. Their OPS is 740. And here Davis is more of a kitchen sink type of methodology, where it is the full 5-pitch mix, 4-seamer, changeup, cutter, curveball, and the 2-seamer against left-handed hitters. And James, in your conversations with Davis, and when we're just looking as far as his pitch breakdown to start the season, is Davis still searching for his go-to pitch against lefties, or is the kitchen sink approach his best way to attack them?
Yes to both. The kick change, I think, is his go-to pitch. That's like what he hopes to be the out pitch. Doesn't seem like he's been as happy with it like this spring or start in like as he was in other portions. But that's like the best like bat missing option he has. In general, like lefties are his struggle or what he is going to have to. I think he would, especially Martin at this point, is just like a full-fledged arsenal with guy, like a little Seth Lugo in terms of like to make he doesn't have this one pitch that has like insane metrics or insane like outlier shape. He's going to throw a ton of shapes at you and be in the zone with a lot of them, and that's how he kind of makes his living. So I don't think he's ever going to be like, yeah, we're going to happen upon the pitch that makes me like annihilate lefties, hopefully in my next pen, and then I sign a $150 million contract and my life changes, sort of thing. I think it's always going to be mixing up with lefties a bit more, and nothing's going to quite be as overwhelming as a right-handed slider that moves away from right-handers is to them. Like the kick change can't quite replicate that. So that would be the answer, is like if you need to say like what's his out pitch against lefties, but I think it's always going to be work them in with a cutter, throw some four seamers, show them a curveball occasionally, and if he executes it right and sets it up right, like the kick change was ideally the pitch that has the most whiff, but it's always going to have to be a pretty big group effort, and that's just kind of the nature of Davis Martin, is any pitch, anytime.
That's why I think moving forward, I could see opposing teams now really stacking their lineups with left-handed bats to try to get Davis out of the game earlier. If that does happen, that's why I mentioned like Sean Newcomb really forcing opposing managers' hands, maybe even emptying out the bench earlier than they would like. Well,
it sounds like you're talking about like an opener, maybe even more than Sean Newcomb following. They do that nowadays.
They do. Yeah. I like it better when it's Grant Taylor than Jordan Leisure, but yeah, speaking of right-handed pitchers,
Grant Taylor is like the platoon agnostic version. Just like we want to wipe through the top of the order and take one of these off your plate. Whereas like ideally maybe the lefty in front of Davis Martin, you're trying to alter the lineup construction a little bit. And Newcomb in front, because he's multi-inning, maybe forces you a bit more of a question like a Tyler Gilbert would be, or even Brian Hudson. It seems like he's been single inning right now, because like Newcomb's like, well, how long are they going to do this? Like how do I just hold my position and don't alter my lineup for this, or is this dude going to do like a turn through the order if I don't, like if I push all my lefties at the bottom, or if I ignore them? Like, so maybe that makes that question more intriguing. But Davis is ripping off 7 innings without an issue. It doesn't seem like he's a candidate for an opener right now. So it remains to be seen. Maybe if he runs into struggles, that becomes kind of more of a consideration.
Based on his post-game quotes, I think Anthony Kay is trying to be cordial, but it sounds like he's not a big fan of having someone open a game when it's his turn to start. Does Davis feel the same way?
Compared to Eric Lauer, he's downright diplomatic. So I think it's probably... I mean, Fetty like said it less pointedly, probably in terms of like getting attention, but he said like, I try not to think about it, and I think that's what you have to do, which is a lot more like clearly fighting the same feeling of like, I don't like this disruption to routine, but I know I have to. This is like where I'm at and what they feel is best, and you kind of have to go with what the strategic plan is. But I don't think anybody who's really that established in the routine is starting. Just given how routine oriented these guys are, is like, great. I love this. I love beginning my 6 innings with a runner on base and 1 out. I don't think any of them are super keen on it, and more some just like I dare to deal with it better than others.
Yeah, I kind of understand where Anthony is coming from. He wants to start with the clean inning. So let him have that clean inning. That's why I'm not a big fan of Jordan Leisure as an opener. The White Sox tried it. It's early in the season. Now we know that Jordan Leisure really should just be facing righties at this time until he figures out something against left-handed hitters. One thing that just dawned on me, because we talked about Erick Fedde briefly, and Fedde was okay on Saturday, but seeing how well Hagen Smith has been pitching, James, do you foresee maybe in the next couple of weeks another starting pitcher that's in the rotation right now gets either demoted or waived to make room for Hagen Smith to follow Noah Schultz and for his MLB debut and being part of the White Sox rotation?
Depends on how it goes. I like in general, like I think you need to want to see like a full Hagen Smith start before you start clearing out someone's space for him. And certainly like holding his velo the whole way time. Like his longest start this season is he just did 4 innings, but it was still like 60 pitches. So his longest start this season is like 66 pitches until like we get to 85 territory and he's completing 5 or completing 5 repeatedly. I think it's probably premature to be like start, assessing who goes type of situation. It's certainly on the horizon. I think it's on the horizon for at least 2 more spots with Tanner McDougal and Hagen Smith over the course of the year. I think it's probably a little early on both.
Okay.
Chris Getz didn't really buy into my question too much about like acknowledging whether Schultz was like always expected to be the first out of the chute because he had pitched in AAA before, and once they felt he was healthy and running, they were going to get going. I just think like McDougal's a little bit less proven in terms of like the starter level command, and like I think you've seen that in his first AAA starts, and then Smith is like clearly still not fully built up quite yet in a way that kind of organically makes the answer to my question yes, even if they won't really say it. But if Schultz didn't come out as hot as he was and looking like the finished product or close to it, or at least done with the minors type of product right out of the gate, so unambiguously maybe it takes a bit longer, but it just seems like not quite there on those two. And you'd want to see like 2 or 3 in a row. I guess 3 in a row is the minimum given what Noah did, to be like, all right, this looks like it. Let's stop wasting bullets down here.
How has Shane Smith looked in Charlotte?
I mean, his last start was better. I basically like the first start was good after the disastrous first inning, but you might say that about there were other Shane Smith starts that look like that was good if you forget like the one part of the game where he lost his control sort of situation. The last start was more like his stuff was one is good that his fastball is playing so dominant down there that he is kind of getting away with being a little bit more scattershot in terms of strike percentage, but maybe it wasn't really the strike percentage that says like, done, he's met the benchmark and this is over with. I think you're still in a position where you could see him back up pretty soon, and that forces your fun, God, do our readers love figuring out who they can kick off the roster sort of debates. But maybe like two good ones from here you could see based on the way he's progressing before he gets considered, or maybe the next one's awesome and then they're ready to go from there. But I don't know if like they're necessarily, who do you kick out of this rotation? Maybe next episode we can debate that.
Yeah, we'll see how Fetty does in his next start. We'll see if Sean Burke bounces back. We'll see how the White Sox still want to manage how they use Anthony Kay. If they still have openers for Kay.
There's clearly a Mike Bassel shaped hole in their bullpen in terms of like keep shuffling multi-inning guys through the waiver wire on the last spot of the pen that theoretically the starter you kick out could fill, albeit probably not happily.
They really could use some dependable high leverage guys. The Sir Anthony Dominguez experience feels a lot like the Alex Colomé experience as far as closing out games. There's going to be base runners. Even if the inning is clean, there will be guys who reach base, but Dominguez.
Do people remember Colomé negatively?
It was
stressful, but it was like, to me, it was the ultimate example. Like, do you want the job done or not? It's done, right?
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying about Dominguez.
What are you bringing up all this old stuff? It's over. We won. That was Alex Colomé's 2019 to me. It was just my job is to save the game, not to be pretty.
That's kind of how Dominguez
care
is
about
right
wins
now.
or
Brian Hudson. Hudson's doing okay. Leisure needs to figure out how to get lefties out. And right now it's a lot of Lucas Sims. Jordan Hicks, I thought, had a good moment as far as trying to keep the Athletics at bay and continue the game into extra innings on Saturday. But yeah, the White Sox bullpen will be a focus, and hopefully the guys get as far as more routine, cleaner innings. But it does help that when Davis Martin is starting right now, he's going 6-7 innings. Maybe Noah Schultz will be that kind of guy. maybe other starters for this White Sox team will eat up more innings and alleviate some of the pressure on the bullpen. But for the White Sox this upcoming week, 3 more road games against the red-hot Arizona Diamondbacks team. These are Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday games for the White Sox and Diamondbacks. 2 late games on Tuesday and Wednesday, even though it's school night. Both of these first pitches are at 8:40 p.m. Central Time. And then on Thursday, that's NFL Draft Day. So MLB is going to try to clear the runway so people actually watch some baseball games before tuning into the NFL Draft. But that's getaway day for the White Sox. That first pitch is at 2:40 p.m. Central Time on Thursday against the Diamondbacks. And, of course, we'll be recapping that series in our midweek podcast episode. But as we typically do for the Monday shows and whenever there's big breaking news around Major League Baseball, this is our segment where we zoom out from the White Sox and take a look at the league as a whole. And it is interesting. The New York Mets were in town to face the Chicago Cubs, which means that Luis Robert, in a way, was back in Chicago. And I have to admit, just for my sanity, James, I haven't been tracking closely on how Luis Robert has been doing for the New York Mets. I was going to give it a month, check his numbers. Does he like life a lot better in Queens than the south side of Chicago? I know he made a comment about the attendance for the White Sox playing in Chicago and that he liked the feeling of playing in front of a full house in Queens. And then I look at the standings and I see that the Cubs sweep the Mets, and the New York Mets have lost 11 straight games. They have a worse record than the White Sox. And I know they don't have Juan Soto, but the New York Mets are 7-15. They're already 7.5 games back of the Atlanta Braves in the National League East. What do you make of this Mets losing streak? I guess even in the grand scheme of things, like Steve Cohen comes in and we're expecting the Mets to challenge the Dodgers, and that's certainly not the case to start 2026.
Well, what do I make of it? I mean, one, it's weird. They certainly have their injuries. I predicted for its Fangraphs, they make us do awards picks, for full staff. I predicted Juan Soto as my NL MVP just to switch things up. I'm going to maybe look smart via irony because he's been out and they can't score anymore. I've always felt, and it comes off as different if you're covering the White Sox, but because our coverage is so focused around transactions, we tend to a team that made a lot of transactions had a good offseason. A team that didn't do enough and didn't give us news to write about had a bad offseason. They're additions. Jorge Polanco, Bo Bichette, Marcus Semien are all kind of huge anchors on the offense. Polanco's on the IL now. And I think obviously White Sox fans would probably feel better if we had proven names like that to offer in some of the position groups. Certainly in terms of a short start, and it's not really a benefit. Obviously they'd be better off if they had a higher payroll and whatnot. But just kind of the nature of, when you spend a lot of money on kind of proven projects, when they start out looking awful, you can't really cycle through them in a way. I guess the White Sox have a version of that in Luis Angel Acuna, where you put a spot towards an out of options guy as a reclamation project. You can't have any flexibility when they start out bad. But the Mets clearly kind of have to. You're not going to stop giving Bo Bichette at bats because he looks bad.
Yeah,
that would statistically that would sound awful. They kind of have to. They wind up having to stay the course early on in a way that at least feels unfamiliar as someone who just watches a rebuilding team all the time, but also can give this idea, especially of, to a media and audience that, wants immediate results and expects this team to win the World Series, just looks like they're doing nothing and kind of puts the heat on the manager in this early way of well, why are you not getting these players to do well? I mean, Lindor is not a recent acquisition, but they can't bench Francisco Lindor, even though he looks weirdly bad, and it wouldn't seem like a good idea. You have all these you make all these commitments to these pieces that seem great and feel great and seem like proven commodities, but it also means when they're not doing what they're supposed to do, you just kind of have to keep whacking the side of the TV set and hope it starts showing you the picture you want it to. Like it's hard to figure out like what they do other than just wait and hope that they start hitting in some way. I think if I told you Luis Roberts' slugging percentage and his OBP, and I did it alone, both would give you wildly different ideas about how well the season's going, and both would probably miss the mark a little bit. So he's not providing this kind of clarity about what he's going to be yet, because it looks so different and weird from anything he's done in the past, and isn't a realization of what you want him to look like, nor what you'd fear him looking like either. So they kind of just have to like sit around and hope for things to get better, which is not typically a way to win hearts and minds in New York, but it's also funny to see like quotes from like Lindor about them going back to the Mets, like they're going. It's like the scare stories about urban cities that you see like in weird conspiratorial news sources of like, oh, there's crime constantly happening in the streets, like them talking about going back to New York, like, oh, we know we're gonna face hell when they go play a game at Citi Field. It just feels like, come on. Like I've had this, like the New York fan base, the New York media market is more harsh than you could possibly imagine. And I feel like, all right, this has gotten a little ridiculous. Like they're not going to kill these guys.
Yeah. Cohen bought the Mets in November of 2020. So 2021 was the first season, and the Mets finished below 500, 77 and 85. Then they had the 101 win season in 2022, but they lost in the wild card in 3 games. They reached the National League Championship Series in 2024 as they won 89 and 73. Lost that series 4-2, and they missed the playoffs last year. So it's not been the dominant run. From my perspective, we were all expecting when Steve Cohen bought the Mets that they were going to be this financial juggernaut, but the results are not matching and the money invested into the franchise. And for them to be 7-15, losing 11 straight games, yeah, I can understand that the Mets, the organization, and the players themselves are going to face some pressure when they get back home to New York. Now, one player who is putting a ton of pressure on opposing hitters, and this is just crazy stats, is San Diego reliever and closer Mason Miller. James, Mason Miller is striking out batters at a 71% clip. He has faced 38 hitters, and he has 27 strikeouts. His FIP is negative 1.13. I didn't know you could have a negative FIP. But that's where Mason Miller is right now, and I know you love fantasy baseball. And I was going to ask you about your fantasy baseball team, especially Mike Trout carrying your fantasy baseball team with the way that he had a Yankee Stadium. But my friend Roxy had this trade proposed to her, and one team was offering Edwin Diaz and Junior Caminero, the third baseman for the Rays, for Mason Miller. And I told Roxy, decline that trade because I don't know what the health status is of Edwin Diaz, and Mason Miller is on this heater. Obviously, I don't think this is sustainable, but what do you make of what Mason Miller has done for the Padres to start this season?
For one, make the trade, get Caminero. The relievers are whatever.
She has Jazz Chisholm and Eugenio Suarez for her third baseman.
Put them on the market. You got your third baseman for the next decade. Which one of those guys is 21?
It's not that type of league. It's just a one-season league. It's not what you have, a keeper league.
All right. It's good. The reliever highs are amazing. I don't think it'll be forever. It kind of goes to show like how hard it is to see like where the elite relievers are really going to come from. It's really kind of a grab bag. I really thought like when Miller first got debuted that he was just going to start for a while, and they moved on from that pretty quickly, and I guess it worked out. But it also, what other takeaways to have from it? You want, ideally, the better time to have the relievers is probably at the age before they reach free agency rather than when they're mowing people down at their peak of their athletic lives, rather than when they've been. I think the cost of like getting through a elite relief season and one that goes to the playoffs is physically pretty high, and having many or certainly consistent and consecutive productive years after like your main burst of like 2 or 3 elite seasons, I think is pretty difficult, and it's pretty remarkable the guys that hold on. I'm mostly just thinking of like Mason Miller in terms of like how much Sir Anthony's look off in the start of the year.
Sure.
It's like, man, it would be nicer to. I mean, they paid an incredible cost, and the Padres farm system is extremely depleted as a result of all the wheeling and dealing. So I can't say it's like the better way to go necessarily. It's like nice if you can afford it, but that early crest of relievers, peak probably in their arb years, and that kind of year 3 to year 5 bucket is where you're going to see like these elite production, probably more so than after 6 years of service time. It's the main thing that this weekend is bringing to mind for me.
Is this a case where our parents used to say, no, we're not going to McDonald's because we have McDonald's at home. I'll make you a cheeseburger if you want a cheeseburger. If the White Sox can't afford someone like Mason Miller, don't they have a possibility of Mason Miller already within the organization, whether that is Grant Taylor or maybe a Tanner McDougal?
Yeah, it's just until you get to that point where you're winning, you kind of always feel like, couldn't we multiply the value of this? Like, we're not using this guy for playoff runs. We're not using this guy for like must-win games down the stretch. We're not really getting like the benefit of situations where the wins are magnified in their value addition to our season, where locking down a lead in a best of 5 or best of 7 series like dramatically alters like how you feel about the season's value and what resources you put into it. And yes, that's true. And yes, you're not going to sign a free agent reliever, even if that's the one thing you splurge on in free agency with your current budget level. That feels like it gets to the level of what those dudes could be in relief, and certainly not Mason Miller can be in relief. It's just that until you get the rest, like it feels very like the sports car parked next to the single family, the single floor, the double wide type of image until like you get the rest of the org right. So when you're in the, yes, you can't get those sports cars very easily on the open market. They cost way too much. It's hard to pull that thing into the double wide and not feel like you have bigger problems you need to address. And so I think that's kind of the feeling.
Yeah, Mason Miller, what could he earn in the future? Could he be the first $30 million season closer? Are we ready for that, baseball fans?
I would, if anything, if you could do it as an owner, wouldn't you rather do like 300 on that guy than like give him 6 years?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Keep it short. But yeah, 3 years, $100 million contract to Mason Miller, who might throw 75, 80 innings for you.
I mean,
but
if you're
striking everyone out.
If you're signing him, I think you should want or be targeting like 10 appearances more in the playoffs when you're factoring in what he's providing you workload wise.
Good point. I hope he keeps this up because it will make a very interesting debate in the National League when it comes to the Cy Young as far as his overall value. But what a start for Mason Miller this year with the San Diego Padres coming out of the bullpen. And that will do it for this episode of the Sox Machine Podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. Again, we'll be back with a new episode around Thursday night, as we'll have more coverage of the Chicago White Sox upcoming with more features on SoxMachine.com. If you didn't get a chance to check it out, I did update our top 100 MLB draft prospect list last week. Why is that key? Because I'll be releasing our first mock draft later this week to take advantage of that sweet, sweet SEO with everybody focusing on the upcoming NFL draft. So we'll talk a little bit more about what the draft board looks like for the Chicago White Sox, not only at pick number 1, but also at pick 41 in the second round later this week on SoxMachine.com. If you just discovered the Sox Machine Podcast, you can subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts, such as Spotify and Apple Music. We do videos. You can check out our videos on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/SoxMachine. Follow us on social media. We're on all the platforms at Sox Machine. You can follow James at JR Fegan. You can follow me at SoxMachine_Josh. If you enjoy our work and want full access to all of our coverage of the Chicago White Sox, Major League Baseball, and the upcoming Major League Baseball draft, Sign up to become a Sox Machine subscriber at soxmachine.com/products. Monthly plans start at $5, and that unlocks all of our coverage, as well as a comment section and ad-free experience for both the website and the podcast. We have additional tiers of support. We have a couple spots open in our Veterans Committee, so if you want to be part of the group chat and be able to text directly to James Fegan, what the hell is going on with the Chicago White Sox? And he answers, inquire within at soxmachine.com/products. The Sox Machine Podcast is a production of soxmachine.com, your home for all things Chicago White Sox baseball and part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Alongside James Fegan, I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for listening and watching.